Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Bo Talks Games. Today, I am joined by Tucker from Backlog Banter to discuss the Indie World Plus Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase, whatever the branding of this little two-pack package was. We're going to be giving our thoughts on basically everything that was shown in both of these showcases, so we just want to kind of sit down and talk about everything here. I've been seeing a lot of negativity online. Tucker himself kind of adding to that. He's gulping on camera right now. So yeah, I wanted to talk about everything that was announced. We'll start with the Indie World because that came first, but if you want to skip ahead to just the partner showcase, I'll have a timestamp down below. I know some people are more interested in like the bigger third-party things, so we'll start with Indie World. Actually, we'll get an overview, Tucker. Overview thoughts on this little two-pack event. How are you feeling?
I think it's fine. I mean, I am going to talk mean game today about how I'm not particularly excited for or planning on purchasing very many, if any of these games. I mean, maybe one or two. But what was there? Lots of variety. I like the fact that we got Indie World and Partner Showcase back to back. I think actually they ended up supporting each other in cool ways where we got small games and like the devs were coming on screen and talking about it. One of my favorite things about Indie Worlds is that they give devs a chance to talk about their games like that. And then we also got the stuff that we usually see out of a Nintendo Direct or out of a partner showcase, which is just in what is in my mind kind of the filler of the Switch, but it is what the majority of the library is and what a lot of people are interested in. We got a lot of JRPGs, we got a lot of things that are in big name IP and things, and so this was solid. I actually think that lacking a big Nintendo announcement, this is just about as good as any given Direct or Indie World is, and I think actually the Indie World was better than most Indie Worlds are. So I was perfectly happy with this. It was a good way to spend 45 minutes of my morning.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Indie World section, as we'll get to, was stronger than most Indie Worlds. Usually I come out of an Indie World thinking like, maybe like one or two games. There was 3 or 4 games for me, which is more than usual. And I would say the scale, like the hype for those announcements were higher than usual for me. I guess last time there was Steamworld Heist 2, which I still haven't played, but that was pretty cool. Yeah, I think comboing these two together, I hope they do this moving forward. I hope if there is an Indie World, if they have enough third-party announcements, especially once we get into the Switch 2 era where there's going to be more third parties than ever, if they continue doing this, I think that's a great idea because it just kind of gets more eyes on everything. Because I know a lot of people, especially people like in my live stream chat, they don't even care about Indie World, but this kind of made them watch it, and then there were people who are like, oh, well, that game looks pretty cool. I'll try that out. So let's go ahead and go through these one by one. They started off with a Balatro free update that's out now. This is pretty cool. It's just a bunch of crossovers. So there's Witcher content now, Vampire Survivors, Dave the Diver, as well as Among Us. I have not played Balatro. I know this was a huge Zeitgeist game over the summer. I really want to play this. But what do you think of this free update?
It's so cool. I mean, one of my favorite things about successful indie games is seeing them kind of give back to the community. I mean, these like small team solo devs like Among Us, like Undertale, like Vampire Survivors, like Balatro, these devs did not expect to blow up in the way they did, and each of them in their own ways have really given back to their communities. Lots of free updates, lots of crossovers. Among Us and Inner Sloth doing Outer Sloth, like publishing other people's games, and Balatro is a great example of that. Local Thunk, one guy that made this game, and everyone wants to be in his game now. And he's crossing over with other games. I believe, if we recall correctly, Balatro is now in Dave the Diver. Like, this game is everywhere. And it's just because it's really good. I mean, I love Balatro. And the cool thing about Balatro is that every run is different. It's kind of a roguelike in that way. And there's so many jokers that you can kind of mix and match a playstyle however you want. And just adding new jokers that have new abilities that's what the game needs. It's just like, keep expanding, like keep it fresh. And having it be crossover stuff with, I mean, I'm sure the abilities are lightly tied to the games in a very, very cursory way, but I think it's very cool. And so this was a really exciting way to open the Direct. And I'm sure I'll end up seeing these because I play Balatro every couple weeks. I'd pop in for a game or two.
Next up, I know you're excited for this one. Neva, this is I don't know if it's a sequel necessarily, but is the next game from the people that made that game Grease from like several years ago. I know you're excited for this. October 15th. Coming out very soon.
This was my highlight of the show. I was already one of my most anticipated games of the year, period. Grease is one of my favorite games of 2018, which was already a pretty solid year for games. And everything I've heard about this game from some hands-on previews is that they actually like added combat and gameplay, and like Grease was very much an experiential game. You're going through these beautiful environments, and they retained all the beautiful environments, but apparently there's really solid combat and some exploration and stuff in this. So day one, absolutely. I cannot wait for this. I don't know if I'll play it on Switch necessarily, but yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I need to go back and play Grease. It always looked really good. I know the physical for that game's pretty expensive. My collector brain going haywire on that one. Next one, this one looked interesting, kind of like almost like an Undertale type game, Moth Qubits. You play as a bug at like this office job, but there's just a ton of different like genres at play here. There's like a shmup section. There's like Undertale combat in this. This is coming out in spring 2025. I'm not familiar with this developer, but I thought this one had really nice pixel art. I like the different bug designs. This one looked pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when games do interesting combinations of genre fusions. And Undertale was definitely one of those. And we've seen some games try to do Undertale, but I think one of the things that was special about Undertale was that genre fusion. And Moth Qubit kind of taking that to the next level, I think is really cool and great. You're right, great looking pixel art, a little sense of humor. I'm excited for this. I mean, I don't know if it'll be amazing, but really good first impression from a game I'd never heard of. Which is what I want Indie Worlds to do. Like, okay, yeah, but I know what Balatro is. I know what Pizza Tower is. I know what Neva is. I want an Indie World to introduce me to some games I've never heard of before and be like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, this one gets good reviews. That's definitely one I'll be checking out. Coffee Talk Tokyo announced for 2025. I have heard a little bit about the Coffee Talk series. Watching this, though, this is my first time like seeing gameplay of Coffee Talk. It looks very similar to Valhalla, cyberpunk bartender action, which I really enjoyed. But this looks very similar. You're just mixing coffee, having conversations with strangers in a coffee shop. This one going to be set in Tokyo, obviously. Looks pretty cool. I like the pixel art on this one as well.
It's kind of crazy how quick they're doing these games. I mean, I'm pretty sure Coffee Talk 2, Hibiscus and Butterflies was just last year. So good on them for pumping them out. But I loved Coffee Talk. I played that on Game Pass. So I recommend that game. Frankly, I don't remember too much about it, but I did have a good time when I played it. And so I'm going to go back and play 2 at some point. And I mean, I probably won't play this next game when it comes out, but I'm glad to see that team continuing what their fans want.
Next up, Sea of Stars Throes of the Watchmaker DLC, free DLC coming out in 2025. I don't think either of us have much to say about this. I have not played Sea of Stars. I would really like to. I'm a little annoyed now, though, because they already released a physical version. It's like, just wait until all the DLC is done. But yeah, that's cool, getting free DLC. I know Sabotage did a big free DLC for The Messenger back when that came out, so they seem to be good about just massive free DLC, so that's coming early next year. More DLC, Power Wash Simulator Shrek content coming this fall. You got a little knight armor. I'd never seen Power Wash Simulator running on Switch, and as we'll talk about with another game in the partner showcase, this game looked rough running on Switch. But Shrek DLC is a cool idea.
There are 2 takeaways from Shrek DLC. Sure, yeah, number one, sure, okay, Shrek, that's funny. I mean, they've done tons of crossovers, so whatever. It's not like that's like a particularly exciting one to me, but number one, it looked really bad. I agree. I'd never seen Power Wash on Switch. I'm sure the rest of the game looks just as... It was probably in a direct at some point, frankly, Bo. Frankly, it was probably in a direct. But also, this is not an indie game. I mean, most of the stuff here, like, okay, you can say Annapurna, Devolver, like, they're publishers, it's indie games, whatever, but this is explicitly not an indie game. Why was this in this part of the showcase? I mean, it should have just been in the partner showcase. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but like, it doesn't make any sense.
I think that helps lead to the theory that they just move stuff around, because had they known that this indie world was going to be next to a partner showcase, it would have been in the partner showcase. But this, to me, says this indie world was supposed to be actually its own separate event. And for some reason, Power Wash Simulator was going to be in that. And if that were the case, we wouldn't really question it. But because there was a partner showcase attached to it, it's just like, that's weird. But yeah, that's coming out later this year. Definitely a highlight for me, Morsels. This is a roguelike game, I believe from a new team. Just very like grotesque art style. Kind of reminded me of like Binding of Isaac a little bit, just in how it's presented. But what was the gimmick on this one was like you change. First of all, you're playing as like a little poo, but then you're like changing into different like little creatures.
Yeah, they said it was a mouse.
Yeah.
They said it was a mouse, but I'm like, I didn't see a mouse in there.
I did not see a mouse. I saw a little poo.
Well, they introduced it. They were like, you're a mouse fighting against the like oppressive world of cats or something like that. And I was like, and I looked at the gameplay. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? But I do think this looks really cool. The phenomenal pixel art. I mean, just really crazy designs in these things, and they've got this the CRT sort of filter over things, and the color palette's really interesting. Gameplay wise, it is very Binding of Isaac, very Enter the Gungeon, and those aren't games that I particularly gravitate towards, but I am the biggest shill of Annapurna that I know, and this game does look visually very high quality, but it looks really good. So I will give it a try because Annapurna is publishing it, and I think they have a great eye for very, very high quality and unique games. And this is another game that made a very good first impression. You're watching that pixel art and you're watching that gameplay, and you're like, this is weird and cool and interesting and visually stands out. So great on the Mortals team. Congratulations on that.
Next up, a game I don't think either of us have much to say about, but Date Everything coming out October 25th. I don't think either of us really play dating sims. However, I will say the idea of a dating sim where just regular house objects are like dateable, that's kind of funny. I mean, obviously they're like people, but like it's a lamp, but it's a human lamp. Kind of funny, kind of cute idea, I guess. I don't know, not for me. But this next game, Tucker, probably my most hyped game from the indie world, I must say. Obviously, the thing that closed it, very exciting. But Peglin, out now, timed exclusive on Switch, $20 on the eShop. I'm actually gonna buy this right after we record because this is Peggle, but with RPG combat, Tucker. There is not a thing that.
Are you a Peggle guy?
I love Peggle so much. Peggle is like one of my favorite things. And I'd heard about this game. I have a friend who's actually met the developers at PAX West, I think last year or maybe the year before, and he had told me about it. I never actually like looked up gameplay though. So when I saw this in the direct, I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want. It's just Peggle, but literally you're fighting monsters on the top screen, kind of turn based. So yeah, out now, timed exclusive. Happy for them to get, I assume, a little bit of Nintendo money there. So yeah, this looks awesome.
Totally, it's very cool.
Yeah,
and another great game with great pixel art. I think my takeaway from this indie world and why I think this is better than your average indie world is there weren't really, well, we're going to get to one, but there weren't really games that I thought looked bad in this. Usually there's an indie game or two in an indie world that I think looks very derivative, doesn't have too much of its own sense of style, but everything here, other than Power Wash Simulator looking bad, and also that doesn't even really belong there anyway, everything looked very high quality. And Peglin was just another one of those. I'm like, okay, that's a cool genre fusion, RPG and Peggle type game, pachinko, ball dropping. It looked really cool. I don't know if I'll play that one, but I like those genre fusions. One of my favorite genre fusion games is Yoko's Island Express, where it's like a Metroidvania and pinball. But this is in that vein, an RPG and pachinko. Very, very clever idea. Looks very high quality. But this is the next one. Is the game I was talking about that looked bad, which is Wobbly Life. What is up with this game?
Well, this is your gang beast game for this indie world, with like the very very physics based. Yeah, this didn't look very good. Didn't look like it was running too hot on Switch.
Interestingly enough, similar to Gang Beasts, and actually kind of the inspiration for those kind of games, Human Fall Flat. They just announced the DLC for the first game this morning. Why was that not in
for Human Fall Flat?
Yes,
that game that came out like 10 years ago. That's getting DLC now.
Yes,
and you said first DLC.
It's just getting a random free expansion. No, I don't. I have no idea. But they announced the second one, but they're just doing a little expansion for the first one. I don't know why. Doesn't make any sense to me. But Human Fall Flat has sold like 50 million.
Yeah, it's one of the best-selling games of all time.
One of the best-selling games ever made.
Yeah, very interesting. That's your fun fact for this video. But yeah, Wobbly Life, not for me. Pico Park 2. This looked kind of interesting. I get what they're going for with the art style. I wish they had chose a different color than puke green for the platforms, but this looked kind of cute. It has 8-player multiplayer, and you're just kind of working together. Very, what's that indie game of the month that popped off last month, like Chained Together? It's kind of like Only Up, but you're literally chained together. So this similar to that, where you have like a string connecting you, but it's 8 players. So that looked interesting. That's out now, timed exclusive. And then they ended on a big one. I've been waiting for this one to come to Switch for probably a year and a half, I would say now. Pizza Tower. And the best part, Tucker, it's out today. And it's getting a physical release from Fangamer with a little Peppino little figure. Very excited for this. I don't know if I'll have time to play it right now. I think that's when I want to have like a full couple days to get through, because PAX West is this weekend, obviously. And Peglin, I think, is like perfect for that. Like during PAX, on buses, all that kind of thing. Ubers. But Pizza Tower, I want to actually sink my teeth into. But out now, Pizza Tower, very exciting. This game got incredible reviews. Looks freaking fantastic. Obviously, if you haven't seen it before, it's Wario Land, but on acid. And it looks fantastic. Have you played it on Steam Deck?
I got it, and I played a little bit on Steam Deck. This is the kind of game I'd much rather play on console, and Switch I think is the perfect place for it. This is the first console that this game is being released on. I'm sure they're working on Xbox and PlayStation versions as well, but very, very cool that it comes to Switch first. Very perfect platform for that. My only downside for this, Pizza Tower out now, great. Pizza Tower out now means that Pico Park 2 and Peglin suddenly are not the big shadow drops. The interesting shadow drops that people are going to seek out. I feel bad for those other games. Like I think that Nintendo should, as they're curating this list and talking to their partners and the indie teams, make sure there's really only 1, maybe 2 shadow drops in any given showcase, because they just compete with one another. Pizza Tower out in a week, like fine, but like I feel bad for Peglin, because Peglin would have been the one that people would have gone towards, and now they're not.
Pizza Tower is an exciting shadow drop, but it didn't need to be a shadow drop because we're all already interested in it. Whereas Peglin, and I think especially Pico Park, is going to suffer from that. So you're totally right, especially when we get into the partner showcase now, where there was another major shadow drop of a collection of games, which we'll get to. But let's start off from the top here. getting into the partner showcase, Tetris Forever, collection of Tetris games from Digital Eclipse coming later this year. Also, Tetris NES coming to Switch Online later this year. I don't know if Tetris is a franchise that really needs a collection, but also pretty cool. They're including like some documentary stuff. I know the Tetris license is kind of wonky, which is why it hasn't come to NSO up until this point. So, cool. I don't know like who really wants to play old Tetris that much and like Bombless or whatever, but it's a cool collection to do. I can respect it.
It is cool. I'm actually surprised by how limited it is, though, because there are dozens and dozens and dozens of Tetris games, and I think that a Tetris collection with 25 games in it that are just all the different kinds of versions from across history, and maybe it's kind of like Atari 50 where you can go through the history and the timeline of Tetris and see how things evolved and like the IP changed and stuff. This is a very limited beginning to that. This is like mostly Famicom and Super Famicom era Tetris games, and it's cool. And also Game Boy Tetris not coming to NSO, which I think is, it doesn't really matter. It's the same game, but missed opportunity. Yeah. But this is cool. And I like seeing Tetris go back to the Tetris company, go back to the history of Tetris, because most Tetris games never get ported, because why would they? But there are so many Tetris games, and they're a big part of games history, and I hope that this is just the beginning of especially Digital Eclipse going back and making collections of previous Tetris games, because there's a ton of them. This is the first time Hatris, I think, has ever been re-released. So congratulations to Hatris fans.
Next up was Star Overdrive 2025 timed exclusive on Nintendo Switch. I think this one game was already announced, but this is kind of this like open world game where you're on like a hoverboard and there's some action combat. It looked nice. I don't know. Nothing like really stood out to me. It looks nice. I don't know. Beyond that, I'm probably not going to play this. Like it's fine. Goat Simulator 3 digital version out now. This was rumored, and a physical release coming in November. Tucker, this game looked so bad running on Switch. I first of all, I don't really like the Goat Simulator that much. I can respect it for what it is, sure, whatever. But if the game looks like that, just don't release it. Like I think that is it looks bad enough to just be like, okay, don't.
Yeah, I think that the thought process, and I talked about this a little bit during my reaction of this game being on Switch, is that it's just, you have to imagine it's really easy to make a worse looking and worse running version of your game. Like you just downscale the textures, you downscale the draw distance. Like it's just easier to do than making any kind of remake or upscaled port or anything. And they just imagine, look, thousands of people are going to buy this on Switch. There are thousands and thousands. I mean, there are obviously millions of Switch players, and that just go on the eShop and see something that they might recognize. And so I'm sure it's a good return on investment. But I'm honestly really looking forward to the next system, because I don't want to play. I don't like Goat Simulator that much either. But if I wanted to, and I wanted to play it on Switch, I don't want to play this version because it looks so much worse. And not that Goat Simulator already looked great, but this is just like a really, really poor looking and probably running game as well. So I just hope that this gets a better version on the next system. I don't know. Would they even bother with that? It's very strange.
What's weird is that, this is such a late port. I think this game came out maybe a year, maybe even 2 years ago. So it's like, anybody who really cares about Goat Simulator probably already played it. So just feels a little weird. All right, Tucker, this next one, an anime game. I know you are a huge fan of the anime RPGs, but I would actually say this is my favorite announcement from this partner showcase. This is a really big deal, and I'll explain to you why. The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky the First, coming out in 2025 from Falcom. This is the first game in the series. This is the first Trails game. All of the Trails games follow a linear storyline. This game has basically been unplayable forever. So telling people to get into Trails has basically been impossible. I think it's on Steam. I think it is on Steam, and that is the only place you can play it. But also, it's like, I think it's a PSP version, so it doesn't look that good. This is a full remake of the first Trails game, and I am very excited for that because I've always wanted to get into the Trails games. I have a couple of them on Switch, and I've just been waiting because it follows a continuity. There's like an actual storyline. I don't want to start with the newest one, so I'm very excited about this, and I think that probably, for me, was the most exciting thing in this presentation.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've got nothing against it. Looked high quality. Very interesting that they made and ported and remade it. Sounds like a lot of other Trails games on Switch. And now they're going back to the first one. Personally, I would have started there, but yeah, I'm not them.
I think there might be some licensing stuff with Xseed, because now NIS America publishes the Trails games, but I believe Xseed had the original publishing rights or something like that. So they seem to have worked that out finally. If this does well, which I'm sure it will, they will likely do Trails in the Sky the second and the third, and then they need to get Cold Steel 1 and 2 on Switch, and I think at that point they'll all be on Switch. So yeah, cool. Get all these games on one platform so people can actually play the series. And I feel like this is a great step in the right direction for making the series like actually played by people outside of just the Trails bubble, because no one wants to start with the last game in the series. So this is a great thing for that series. In that same sizzle reel, though, they announced the Stalker Legends of the Zone trilogy coming in November. I've never played Stalker, but that's pretty cool. As well as the Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition coming out on September 26th this year. Pretty cool. Not much to say on either of those. Like I said, Stalker is neat. This next one, Tucker, SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Star game, October 4th. Now listen, this is being made and published by Outright Games, who has a very bad track record. Did they make the Kong game, or was that Game Mill? I think that was Game Mill. Outright Games, not necessarily much higher in the quality department. But this game, I'm not going to say this game looks great or anything. However, the idea of like a really physics-based Patrick Star, like open world platformer, kind of fire. He's just rolling around like it looks very goofy, which I think is exactly what this kind of game needs to be.
I like that it's a little different. I like that it's not just like a reskin Battle for Bikini Bottom like 3D platformer. Who knows if it'll be anything better than like a 6 out of 10, frankly. But there's an audience for it, and so I was about to say I'm glad. I don't know. It happens. I feel no particular way about this game.
Next up, a Nintendo published game was announced, Tucker, for December 5th, Fitness Boxing 3. This definitely has some weird implications, in my opinion, for release dates this year, but that's a whole separate can of worms. They're bringing back Fitness Boxing for a third time, coming out December 5th. Nintendo's publishing it.
Like a sixth time.
Well, yeah, like sixth time, but this is the third time Nintendo's publishing it, so cool, I guess. I know these games are like really popular in Japan, especially during COVID. They were really big, so cool. Now they have a sit boxing, so you can just sit down while you box if you really just want to sit down, which is cool, I guess. But
could you not do that before?
Yeah.
Like,
I guess not.
How's it gonna know?
That's a great question. I don't know. Well, now the 3D model in the game is sitting down. Maybe that's all it really means.
Yeah.
So that's coming December 5th. I know people like those games.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I do think it's a little important to zero in on the fact that is a Nintendo published game. I mean, I think that is probably the most obscure Nintendo published games on the system. Like, people don't even really realize that Nintendo,
except for DC Superhero Girls.
That's fair enough. Yes, but those games are obviously have a similar tenor of why is Nintendo publishing this. I mean, if you're right and they're very popular in Japan, okay, it's just probably easy money, frankly. But very bizarre, and the fact that this was in a partner showcase, and a new Nintendo published game was announced in this partner showcase. Just like early in this year, we got a partner showcase, and Endless Ocean Luminous was announced. Here's another one, and so I think this will probably be something we see going forward, consistently announcing a new Nintendo published game in these partner showcases.
Also, I believe Fitness Boxing does put this year over the top of having more published games in 2023, which is just kind of interesting to think about. When you're doing your year rankings, you got to include Fitness Boxing 3 now. But then we had a pair of Capcom Fighting Collections. So the new one, Capcom Fighting Collection 2, coming out next year. I don't think anybody was really expecting another one to be announced right now, but this includes Capcom vs. SNK 1 and 2, Project Justice, Capcom Fighting Evolution, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, Plasma Sword, as well as Power Stone 1 and 2. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm a huge fighting game fan. However, I love what Capcom's been doing with all of their collections across Mega Man and these fighting games, bringing a lot of these arcade games to console, some of them for the first time, some of them being localized for the first time. As someone who does not know too much about Capcom fighting games, I know the Marvel vs. Capcom collection is a huge deal, and that got a release date here as well for physical on November 22nd, as well as a digital release on September 12th, so very soon on that. But seeing Power Stone 1 and 2 come back feels like a pretty big deal. Power Stone I don't think has ever been re-released. And I always see people talk about Power Stone.
Yeah, there was a collection on PSP.
Oh, sure. Okay, that's still 20 years ago at this point.
A long time ago.
So cool. Yeah, Capcom keeping it up with these collections.
Just want to do not get called out in the comments.
Yeah, someone's gonna really comment about the PSP Power Stone collection. But yeah, cool. More Capcom collections. I feel like at a certain point, like they got to run out soon enough. But I mean, there's PS1 games in here and Dreamcast games in here. So I guess are they gonna start doing GameCube stuff? I mean, I guess. And then probably 360. I don't think Street Fighter 4 is on Switch, so eventually we'll get like a Street Fighter 4 collection. There's still plenty of stuff, I guess, but they're running out of those like 90s games. This is a pretty big announcement for the weeby of us. Atelier Yumiya, The Alchemist of Memories, and The Envisioned Land coming out next spring. This is the first new Atelier game since Ryza 3. It's the first new Atelier character since Ryza, which I think came out back in 2018. So it's been a while since we've had a fresh start for an Atelier game. I thought this looked pretty good. I've only played one Atelier game. I played the Murray remake that came out I think last year or maybe the year before. This looked pretty cool. This is I would say, once again, very niche, like a Legend of Heroes game, but at the same time, Atelier has 20 games. It obviously has a pretty big but also niche audience. So to have a new announcement for that in here is pretty cool, I think.
I will defer to you on that one. It looked good. So yeah, cool.
Suikoden 1 and 2 Remaster now has their new release date for March 6th. This was supposed to come out last year, Tucker. But I'm excited for this. I've never played Suikoden from Konami, of course. But yeah, it has our new release date. Been delayed a ton. Just happy it has a release date. But there's a lot of stuff coming out in March, or next spring, I realize. Atelier, the Legend of Heroes game, Suikoden, some other stuff we're going to get to. We had another shadow drop, though, that I think is definitely unfortunate for Pizza Tower and Peglin. The Castlevania Dominus Collection. People have been waiting for a collection of the Castlevania DS games. This is out now. It's the 3 DS games. Very cool. Happy to have all of these all playable on Switch. I think this was the last one I think they needed. I mean, I guess there's still stuff like Symphony of the Night that's not on Switch. I think there might be some PlayStation exclusivity with that, honestly, because that collection came out on PS4. And then I guess there's stuff like the Lords of Shadow games on PS3 and Castlevania 64. But in terms of the mainline handheld Castlevania games, I think this was all they had left to do. So very cool shadow drop.
It is very cool. And one thing I want to shout out to them, and I hope that this is inspirational to other companies porting DS and 3DS games to modern hardware, is the layout with the map on the screen in the top corner. It looks very good. And obviously for a Metroidvania like that, that's actually better. That actually sounds kind of nice to have the map permanently up there. Obviously, this kind of game with the map being the bottom screen means that it's a lot easier to develop a DS port of that. But it kind of felt like DS games were going to be, because of the dual screen nature, were going to be just completely locked to those hardware for all time. But companies are finding workarounds, and this is a really cool continuation of one of the only things that I can praise Konami about, just in general, but is they're very good at these Castlevania collections. All the Castlevania collections have been amazing, and I expect this one to be the same. All these collections, Konami, Capcom, I think this is one of the best things about the modern games industry, is really high quality collections of older games, versions of games that people might have forgotten about. There are also 2 other kind of side Castlevania games that are included in this. It's not just those 3 games. They're oh, here, we'll throw in a little bonus thing. I love that they go these extra miles. I mean, they did not need to put those, I don't remember what they are, but put those extra Castlevania games in there. But they did. And it's a very good way to preserve games history.
Yeah, that's why when I see so much negativity about directs that are full of remasters and collections and remakes, I'm just I can understand wanting new games, but at the same time, first of all, you haven't played all these games. Second of all, even though I'm not gonna buy this Castlevania collection really anytime soon until they do a physical release through limited run, just the fact that these DS games, these are very expensive DS games, by the way, these are now playable on everything. I assume they're on PlayStation. I haven't looked, but I can't imagine they're not. That's awesome. That these are just available on a modern platform. There's no weird BS you have to do, no emulator. You can just get it on Switch and it's gonna work. Like you said, the map's on the top screen at all times, so that's just nice to be able to have that. So very cool. Another remaster, not the one we expected. So Tales of Xillia Remastered leaked a month ago, but that's not the game we got. We got Tales of Graces F Remastered coming out January 17th from Bandai Namco. This one looked pretty good. I am not as familiar with this one. Someone in my chat during my live stream was saying that this game was never localized in America, only in Japan and I think maybe Europe. This was a Wii and PS3 game, I believe. So if that is true, if this is the first time this game is getting localized in North America, that's obviously a huge deal, and cool to see them continuing the remasters of the Tales series. I'm just curious. Well, first of all, hopefully it's better than Tales of Symphonia Remastered. That was a really shoddy remaster. A lot of people had issues with that, so hopefully it's better than that. Hopefully they learned their lesson. And also I'm just curious to see, where is Tales of Xillia? Because that game, we know that game's coming. So are they just gonna start? I was almost expecting that Final Fantasy moment from 2018 where I thought they were gonna be okay, Tales of Graces, Tales of Hearts, Tales of Xillia 1, 2, Zestiria, all of them at once. But no, just Tales of Graces, which is cool, but very peculiar that they are doing this one and not Xillia right now. But coming out very soon. Cool. Then the My Sims Cozy Bundle was announced. Tucker, I know you love your cozy games. You're a big fan. November 19th from EA.
This is an interesting one. I actually think that this is, especially because when was the last time EA did a remaster or a collection or like a random older
When was the last time EA released a Switch
That's
game?
a great point. Yes, well, they
That wasn't EA Sports.
yeah, there was an FC game also in one of the sizzle reels here.
Yeah.
But I think this is cool that they're actually going back to this. It's obvious that they're like, oh, hey, Animal Crossing is massive, and it's been years since New Horizons. What is an easy way for us to capture some of that audience? And I think that's smart, frankly. I mean, it shows that there's still variety in EA's pocket, and I like the idea of a company as big as EA going back and re-releasing some of their games that people have forgotten about. I mean, the My Sims games are maybe nostalgic to some people our age who grew up with those on DS, but I like that this is a remake of those older games. I like this as a collection. I don't think we actually knew that there was going to have 2 games in it until today.
Yeah, it includes My Sims Kingdom,
yeah.
which I think is actually... I remember seeing more about My Sims Kingdom growing up than just My Sims.
Mm-hmm.
So that almost seems like a bigger deal, perhaps.
Yeah.
Which is
who knows?
It's cool. I once again, I think it's so cool when even I'm not gonna play My Sims,
No.
but I just think it's cool that these games are on Switch now.
Absolutely.
And maybe PlayStation. I could see this actually being a Switch exclusive, but more games from the Wii era coming over. I'm all for it.
When was the last time EA made a console exclusive, Bo? I don't think that happens.
That's a great point. That's a great point. It's probably on PlayStation and Xbox. Then we had some Five Nights at Freddy's stuff, some updates. I don't care. And then our final 2 announcements. I don't believe this was actually a new game announcement. So to catch you all up on your Rune Factory lore, mostly for Tucker here, Rune Factory 6 was announced last year, or maybe even the year before, as a logo in a Nintendo Direct. Someone can correct me in the comments down below. I don't think this is that game. I'm pretty sure there's a mainline Rune Factory game coming, and this is like a spinoff that obviously changes a lot of it and adds even more combat elements. Obviously, it's like this very Japanese-inspired setting with like mythical dragons and stuff. I think this looks pretty cool. As someone who's not like super into Rune Factory, but I've always been like more interested in the series, this one looks pretty cool. I think this looks nice. Spring 2025 looked like it was running pretty well on Switch, all things considered. I think this is a cool announcement.
Yeah, and looked really good. It is very cool. And the interesting thing is that it seems like you say it's a spinoff. They said new take, they said new direction. I really don't know what this means because I'm not a Rune Factory person.
Maybe this is Rune Factory 6.
It could be.
It could be Rune Factory 6 and they've dropped the title. That is possible. I'm not positive.
I think especially if they want to reboot this series, and they're obviously taking it in a more action RPG direction, and completely overhauling the visual style and stuff. I think dropping a 6 would be, if this is that game, would be very good for it because then there's no baggage. It's just like, oh, this is just new action RPG, and honestly, it looks really good visually, and the animations are really cool. And there's these big boss fights and stuff, and I'm like, I thought Rune Factory was like Harvest Moon. Like I thought you were just like romancing and like growing carrots.
It is a spinoff. It is a Harvest Moon spinoff.
Oh, Rune Factory is a Harvest Moon spinoff?
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, no, it is.
Serious? Okay, I'll have to do a little research about this.
Yeah,
interesting. But yeah, I thought this looked good.
This original subtitle was like, it's like Rune Factory, a fantasy Harvest Moon. Like that's what the original was called. I'm pretty sure, or something along those lines. So, very very entwined with that series. But I would say at this point, Rune Factory is definitely bigger than the original Harvest Moon series at this point. Story of Seasons, that's its own thing now. That's the original team making Story of Seasons. But Rune Factory, Guardians of Ozma, Spring 2025 looks pretty cool. And then they ended on something that I have been waiting for a very long time, Tucker. However, I would say this is actually one of the more disappointing announcements in this showcase, just because of the way they did it. Yakuza Kiwami finally coming to Nintendo Switch October 24th, and that is it. That is the only one they announced. Now, maybe I just built myself up in my head. I've built this dream scenario of they're going to finally bring Yakuza to Switch, and it's going to be, at the very least, 0, Kiwami, Kiwami 2, and then realistically, also 3, 4, and 5. That's what I've always expected. They're all old games.
Bo, why not all of them? Frankly, 6, 7, and 8 also could run on Switch. Totally fine.
Right, those are PS4 games, so they could have done it. But they're bringing just this one game. We don't know the price yet. My issue with this is they want you to play Yakuza 0 first. Yakuza 1 was remade with Yakuza 0 in mind. So for them to bring Kiwami 1 by itself this late into the Switch's life cycle, like the port looked good. It looked solid. It's just weird. I'm very, very happy these games are finally coming over, and I expect that, like you were saying before we started recording, every single Direct now for the next 2 years is going to have a Yakuza announcement. But I'm worried about the pricing on this. This better not be full price for just one game. I mean, you can get Kiwami 1 probably for $10 on PS4. Just it was a deflating announcement. I'm so happy it's finally coming, but it's just the way they're doing it, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, I think that the implication of it all being released separately, that means the prices are going to be a lot higher if you want to get into Yakuza, which is a series with so many entries that it's already kind of intimidating from a games perspective, number of games, number of hours, about how much you have to spend to get all of these. I think that collections of these is really the only thing that makes sense to me. And you're right. What this means is we're just going to get all these separately and over time. And I mean, it'll keep interest up, but RGG already puts out so many games.
They'll never catch up. They have to do a collection at some point if they want to catch up, because RGG releases a game every year. I think actually we're expecting a new Yakuza to be announced in a couple weeks at Tokyo Game Show. So they need to at least release like 3 or 4 a year. Now, I imagine when we get to the PS2 and early PS3 games, like that will be a collection. 3, 4, and 5 almost has to be a collection because that's how they release them on PS4. So it'd be really weird if they didn't release those as a collection. But like that, this at the very
Yakuza
least,
1, Yakuza 1 though was released in a bundle on Wii U.
That's
with
true.
Yakuza 2.
That's true, but that wasn't Kiwami. So at the very least, this means we will be getting Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 2 by themselves, as well as probably Yakuza 6, 7, and 8. So just weird. I was at the very least hoping for 0 through 6. Like a Dragon, so Yakuza 7 and then 8. I was maybe not expecting those right away, but yeah. Deflating announcement, but also very happy. Yeah. It is also just interesting. Like I give it up hope. I thought they were saving these for Switch 2 at this point, but no, I guess Sega was just dumb. And they were just like, let's just wait 7 years to bring this series to Switch. Like, what? It's so weird. But
I mean, they should have started doing this 5 years ago, and then we would have had them all already.
Yeah, exactly. So, cool announcement. Just a little weird. And that is our final game. Also, kind of a weird closer to close on a port. But also, looking at the list, I don't know if there's really anything that would have garnered a hype reaction. You could make the argument, like, if you're really into Rune Factory or Atelier, maybe those would be better closes. But Yakuza Kiwami was definitely the best choice out of the games they had in this lineup. And I personally think it was a pretty good partner showcase. I do think the February one was better, just in terms of I feel like in my memory there was more new games there. But having this little double pack of an indie world and this partner showcase, having a bunch of collections coming over, the Capcom collection, the Castlevania collection, getting the first Trails game remade, getting this new Atelier game, this Rune Factory game that looks pretty good, a Tales of remaster, Suikoden getting a release date. I thought it was pretty good, Tucker. I'm going to be real with you.
Yeah, I thinking back on it, I think my biggest problem with this is the fact that there was, especially in the partner showcase, there's actually basically no new games. I mean, the Patrick game is new, Fitness Boxing is new, Star Overdrive is new, but Capcom Collection, Suikoden Collection, Castlevania Collection, Five Nights at Freddy's Port, My Sims Collection, Yakuza Remastered, remaster of one of those anime games, Worms Collection, Stalker Collection, Goat Sim is a port, like a Tetris Collection. This might be the most port heavy, remake heavy presentation I've ever seen in my entire life, frankly. It carried in terms of new games by the indie world, which are all new games except for Pizza Tower. But very, very interesting that they decided to, and I think does signal the fact that probably a lot of devs for their new games are waiting for that next system. I'm sure that are working on those versions right now. This is basically this was a port showcase. This was a remake collection showcase, and that is fine. And there's good looking games here, but I think that also might be a part of the reason why I'm coming out of this not as glowing. Is I don't really I felt like I learned too much new about what is coming to Switch, because most of these are old games coming to Switch.
Yeah, for me, I just come at a lot of directs from the perspective of I want every old game to be on Switch. So when I see a ton of collections of very high quality games, remasters of PS3 era games, I'm just like, okay, I can understand being disappointed from the new game perspective. However, if you actually look at this list of just the partner showcase, let's say you add 3 first party Nintendo announcements, this would be pretty par for the course, I think, for any general Nintendo Direct, because you got a new Rune Factory, you got a new Atelier game, you got a Legend of Heroes game. That's like, those are like your big 3 third-party games. They did show we didn't talk about everything that was in the sizzle reels. There was like Dragon Quest and all that is up for pre-order, but I can understand being disappointed if you're coming into this for new games. But as someone who just wants all these collections, I'm feasting right now, and most of the stuff coming out within the next 6 months, which is really cool. I always appreciate that as well. But that is going to do it for today's discussion. Of course, you can follow Tucker over on Backlog Banter and on Twitter at Tucker Hazel. You can follow me on Twitter at Botox Games. Subscribe here, of course, for more discussions. I'll have a video tomorrow talking about this Direct and just what it means for Switch 2, because I think Switch 2 is probably being announced in the next 3 weeks. Not because of the contents of this Direct, but because of the timing.
Oh my god, Bo. Oh my god.
It's finally happening, Tucker. I do believe we are at that moment. We are on the precipice of a new console review. But stay tuned for all that. Of course, subscribe. Check out my other channel at It's Amiibo. I'm gonna do another video talking a little bit more in depth about some of these anime games on that channel. So yippee. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.